Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. So, Maharaj, are we going to do Chaitanya Charitamrita or any other special topic we have?
Yeah, we'll continue with Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Okay. So, Maharaj will continue with Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 22, verse 142 onwards. So, Maharaj, please take over the call. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay, we did 141 yesterday.
It was day before yesterday, 141. Yes.
No, I did something yesterday. No, that's right. Day before yesterday. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj, your screen is not clear, Guru Maharaj. The video, I don't know, somehow it's like the video is not clear.
Oh, you don't have to see me. I mean, you can see the verse, right? That's what I'll be speaking.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. This is not my computer. That's why.
Okay.
I'm in a different place, in a different computer. Everything's different today.
Okay, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. So, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Giridharma Charabhaje, Krishnera Charana, Nisida Papachare Tara, Kavu Nahe Mana. Although the pure devotee does not follow all the regular principles of Varnashrama, he worships the lotus feet of Krishna. Therefore, he naturally has no tendency to commit sin. Purport. The Varnashram system is planned in such a way that one will not commit sinful activities. Material existence continues due to sinful activity. When one acts sinfully in this life, he gets a suitable body for the next. When one again acts sinfully, he takes on another material body. This way, one is continuously under the influence of material nature. Purusho prakriti stohi, bhunkte prakriti jan gunan, karanam guna sangosya, sarasad yoni janmasu. The living entity in the material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of material nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil amongst various species. Due to our association with the modes of material nature, we get different types of body, good and bad. One cannot be liberated from the cycle of birth and death, known as transmigration of the soul, unless one is completely freed from all sinful activities. The best process, therefore, is to take to Krishna consciousness. One cannot take to Krishna consciousness without being freed from all sinful activities. Naturally, one who is very serious about Krishna consciousness is freed from all sinful activity. Consequently, a devotee is never inclined to commit sins. If one is pressured by the law or obligation to give up sinful activities, one cannot do so. However, one takes to Krishna consciousness, can very easily give up all sinful activity. This is confirmed here. Omagyantimidandasya Gyanajana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasnaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pasyatya Desatarine Vanchakalpa Durubhescha Kripa Sindhuve Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of material nature. So this verse from the Bhagavad Gita, the modes are they're like ropes. In fact, the word mode and the word rope has the same meaning in Sanskrit. If you translate the word rope into Sanskrit, it's guna, and if you translate the word mode, it's also guna. So guna means a rope, and modes have the same meaning. They bind one in a certain type of way. Due to our desire, and this is the foundation, we desire in a certain way. Of course, the original desire is that we want to be happy, or we want to enjoy life. So there is a principle that connects with the idea of enjoyment, and that is the principle of direction. Where do I put my direction in order to get enjoyment? So we see people put their direction in different directions, and therefore they get different types of enjoyment. And based on the quality of that direction, one will enjoy in the mode of goodness, in the mode of passion, and in the mode of ignorance. So as soon as that desire activates itself and starts to manifest in activity, it connects with one of these modes. Therefore, it says in the Bhagavad Gita, outside of the three modes of material nature, there is nothing else. What does that mean? That means within the material energy, it's simply comprised of these three energies. So as soon as we have a certain desire and we want to fulfill that desire in that direction, that desire goes, and therefore we get a particular type of enjoyment. And you'll see people's enjoyments are different according to their. Now we use the word enjoyment in a loose way because it says it here, enjoying the three modes of material nature. That means this idea of enjoying is simply it's a compromise statement, which means that one is acting within the three modes of material nature, and one is situated in those three modes, or one of the three modes actually. And now it says here, due to that association with that material nature. Now the modes are different, therefore there's good, evil, and a combination of both. We might use the word bad, good and bad, and a mixture of both. So there are 8,400,000 species of life. And due to the particular quality of the desire to enjoy in relationship to a particular mode of material nature, one gets a particular type of body. As it says here, due to the association with the modes, we get different types of bodies. So our desire leads to activities. Activities leads to a particular mode. The mode will give us a result, either good, bad, or mixed. And because material energy is very diversified and constantly mutable, always changeable, there is a very large variety, just like colors. If you take the three principal colors, you have yellow, red, and blue. And these are called the primary colors. Now, an expert painter can make so many other colors from these three colors. So in the same way, when the modes mix in different ways, we get different types of body. And therefore, the mixture is so diverse that there are 8 million species of life below the human form. And within the human form, that means those who have 2 arms and 2 legs, there are 400,000 different types of human forms. So you can see how even a slight difference in a particular desire, so slight that's not even noticeable, will get a particular body that's different from another body. So we have to be careful what we desire. We might think, well, I want to be Krishna conscious, so I should desire those things that are Krishna conscious. That is correct, and that is the absolute understanding of how to get free from the effects of the modes of material nature. Change your desire to Krishna. And then as your desire changes, your activities change. And constantly what you're doing, you're formulating your spiritual body within your material existence. It's actually happening unbeknownst to you. Your spiritual body is starting to manifest itself gradually as you engage in devotional service. And when you engage in a particular way, it's manifesting itself in a particular way. And so this is happening unbeknownst to us. That's why at a certain level of spiritual attainment, we can start to understand what is my eternal relationship with Krishna in the spiritual world, because that body's already been formulating by the activities we have been performing. All this is going on the subtle platform within the mind and the ego. And all of this is happening unbeknownst to us. Now, just desiring Krishna consciousness doesn't mean that one will be free from the modes of material nature. And the example would be given is that if you have a particular tendency and you want to change that tendency, now that tendency is long-term, something that's been with you for a little while. Simply by desiring it or practicing something that is different doesn't mean that tendency will go away, because material conditioning goes very, very deep. So although we want to become Krishna conscious, we're still conditioned in the material sense. So how do we get over that material conditioning? Well, therefore, the application of the intensity of the practice of Krishna consciousness helps to destroy our previous conditioning automatically and brings about a spiritual conditioning where we awaken to our spiritual nature. And so it takes time. Simply by desiring to become Krishna conscious doesn't mean you're going to be Krishna conscious. Simply by desiring to do something doesn't mean it's going to happen if you have a tendency to do the opposite. So that is the way of conditioning. And so we have to recondition ourselves. Now, the good thing is that what we're reconditioning ourselves to is who we actually are. This is the most important point, because what we are now is our conditioned nature. It's not our constitutional nature. Constitutional means something that doesn't change. Conditional means under certain circumstances, something has manifested. And so, as we engage in devotional service, we are awakening our constitutional nature. And gradually, as that becomes more and more awakened, it pushes out and overshadows our conditioned nature. And we come back to who we actually are. Jiva Sarupai Krishna Nityadas, we are eternal servants of Krishna. So that is the process. So therefore, one has to remain steady. As it's explained by Srila Rupa Goswami, Adao Strada Sadhu Sangha Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, and Nishta. Nishta means steadiness or fixed. When one reaches the fifth stage of Nishta, one will not again take up material activities because they're fixed. They're fixed. And in order to get fixed, one has to pass through the most difficult stage, and that's the fourth stage. The fourth stage is Anartha Nivritti. The Anarthas don't allow us to reach that fifth stage. Therefore, Rupa Goswami explains that one has to eliminate the Anarthas. There are 16 Anarthas. We do discuss these many times. And as we relieve ourselves from the Anarthas, we move closer to the platform of Nishta. And as Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur writes in his Bhajana Rahasya, 175% of the Anarthas are removed completely. That means absolutely destroyed. Not just destroyed by activity, but no longer able to return. When one becomes free from that Anartha and has reached 75% of the Anarthas, then one moves to the Nishta stage. So one can reach Nishta after Anartha Nivritti has been 75% purified, like that. And so that is, and once one gets to the Nishta stage, then Nishta means fixed, steady. Not because what causes us to be unsteady in our devotional service is the Anarthas. These are the things that cause us to be unsteady. Although we want to be Krishna conscious, although we want to engage in devotional service, our material conditioning and tendency, along with the effects of the Anarthas, all are still somewhat prominent or are influential, and therefore we can't stay fixed in Krishna consciousness. But one who is fixed in Krishna consciousness will not be moved by happiness and distress. That means they're not going to be, if they're happy, it doesn't mean because they're happy, they're more enthusiastic to serve. And if they're not happy, they're less enthusiastic. The enthusiasm is not affected by how they feel or don't feel. That's the Nishta stage. Their enthusiasm will overshadow difficulties and push forward successes. And so this is the process of Krishna consciousness. So this is a very interesting verse here. And Prabhupada also mentions the importance of the Varnashram system. Varnashram is material. It's material, but it situates one in a proper lifestyle by which one can be freed from sinful activities. Because as long as one is still acting on the sinful platform, one cannot make any progress in spiritual life. That's why when we agree to take initiation from the spiritual master, we agree to follow 4 regulative principles. No illicit sex, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling. And as is explained, that these 4 pillars, they're like pillars of sinful activity. What that means is that any sinful activity is found within those 4. And therefore, if one who follows these 4, they are free from all sinful activities. And that's why it's a requirement in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we can't make progress if we're still acting in the sinful way. And there's where the Varnashram system allows one to be free from those 4 activities so they can situate themselves in both Varna, that means duties, and ashrama, that means brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas. So when one balances these 2 together, the varna and the ashram together, that is considered to be a stable platform to perform devotional service. Now, we don't follow the Varnashram system as made by the scriptures, as designed by the scriptures. We follow what is called Daivi Varnashram. Daivi means spiritual or transcendental. That Varnashram that engages a person in the service of the Supreme Lord according to their particular nature. Like I was with one devotee, very nice devotee, and I was just talking to him. I could see there's a particular nature that he has that it's quite easy to evaluate. I mean, it doesn't take any evaluation. You can see. Some people, their natures are a little bit less, they're more subdued, and you can't see it immediately. But this devotee, it's easy to see. And so I told him, this is your service, because this is the nature you have. And he had been doing that occasionally, but not as a regular service. And then when I reminded him, he again became, what we say, enlivened by the idea, because it's his nature. So therefore, one should try to serve according to their nature and situate their nature in a particular ashram, and then engage in devotional service like that. And then one will gradually become transcendental to the 3 modes of material nature. Because as the 3 modes of material nature work to simply keep people on the bodily concept of life, where devotional service is transcendental to all that. Now, when we understand that I am something different than this material body, and I'm engaging my material body, and I'm purifying my material body by engaging it in the service of the Lord, then when that consciousness develops, then we are situated firmly in Krishna consciousness like that. So Prabhupada wants to make the point, here's a way to become free from sinful activities. And when one becomes free from sinful activities, one can engage nicely in devotional service. Okay. And Prabhupada makes another interesting point here, that by law or by obligation, one cannot do so. In other words, just like we tell people, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no meat eating, gambling, and people try to follow. But unless they're engaged in devotional service, unless they're getting the happiness in devotional service, these sinful activities will return. Because the tendency of the conditioned soul is to look for happiness. And if it doesn't find happiness on the spiritual platform, there is, unless they are very strong in their renunciation, they will again look for that happiness within the 3 modes of material nature. So here you find his verses quite interesting. Okay, so here we can go to the next verse and let's see if the next one follows this one at all. Yeah, and so it goes here. Agyane va hayayari papa upastita Krishna Tandra Sudakara na karye prayashchita. If, however, the devotee accidentally, here's the word, becomes involved in a sinful activity, Krishna purifies him. He does not have to undergo the regulative form of atonement. Purport: Krishna purifies from within as the Chaitya Guru, the spiritual master, who's situated within the heart. And this is described in the following verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.42. So here it mentions that due to one's tendency to sinful activity, even though that tendency appears not to be prominent, but it's still situated within the heart. If one accidentally gets involved in a sinful activity, Prabhupada gives the example. He says, before you came to Krishna consciousness, you were smoking cigarettes. So now you meet your old friends, and then all of a sudden you're back in that environment, you're talking, and then again they're smoking cigarettes, and then all of a sudden you find yourself doing the same thing. So due to wrong association, one becomes influenced by one's old sinful activities, the tendency for sinful activity. And that was accidental. It wasn't planned. When sinful activities are planned, then they're not accidental. They're not accidental. But it happens sometimes. And therefore, apichet suraracharo bhajate mamananyabhat saru aeva samantavyak vyavyaso hiso hisa. That even if one commits the most abominable type of activity, if he's engaged in devotional service, he's considered to be saintly. Kontiya pravijani hina me bhakta pranashyati. And then Krishna tells Arjuna, declare it boldly, my devotee will never be vanquished. So one has to be careful not to get involved accidentally in sinful activity. Therefore, one should very carefully choose how they associate and who they associate with. Of course, if one is preaching, one has to associate with people who are not devotees, who are not following principles. But in order to do that, one has to make sure that they don't become affected by, just like if a doctor goes and tries to treat a patient and becomes infected by the patient, and what is the benefit of that doctor? In other words, he didn't take proper precautions in order to prevent himself from getting sick. So that analogy or that example can be used in the same way, that in association with asatsanga, those who we don't associate with, but sometimes either for the sake of business or for the sake of preaching, we might find ourselves in the association of the non-devotees. And one has to be strong in order not to become implicated in wrong, because wrong thoughts lead to wrong activities. Wrong thoughts lead to wrong feelings lead to wrong activities. So one should be very careful to watch their thoughts. Just like sometimes if you watch your thoughts during the day, you'll see your thoughts follow a certain pattern. And you might find that that pattern becomes very regular. And then when you go to sleep at night, you might find that that pattern of thoughts reappears in a dreamlike existence, because the mind is very impressionable. Just like if you see something that you shouldn't have saw, I'll give you an example. There was one brahmachari, he was preaching and traveling, but he was alone. He was alone, so he was preaching and traveling, going from place to place, and distributing books. And so one time he was in his apartment, and he inadvertently, not purposely, pulled up a website that he shouldn't have pulled up. It was something very sinful. And somehow or other, his mind became attracted to it. When his mind became attracted to it, he found himself getting stuck in that attraction, and then his Krishna consciousness was gone. And he came to me, and I explained, what was his fault? Well, the fault was wrong association. And wrong association happens when we don't have right association. If we have the right association, then we won't become victimized by wrong association, or even look for association outside of the association that we have. And the same boy, he suffered for a long time. Finally, it took him a while to get over the situation. But the mind becomes so impressionable that it can pick up something and it stays within the mind for a long time. So one has to be careful of that. One has to be careful of that. And many times in dreams, that those desires that formulate due to wrong association manifest themselves in forms of dreams. And sometimes we call it a good dream, or sometimes a bad dream, or sometimes a dream that doesn't make any sense. But these things happen because the mind is impressionable. Even Prabhupada said, when I travel on the airplane, sometimes I see these movies, because, they play movies on the airplane. And Prabhupada said, yeah, when I see something and I think, oh, I shouldn't have saw that. Prabhupada's talking about himself. He said, then I can't get that image out of my mind. Of course, Prabhupada could, but he's using himself as an example just to help us understand our particular situation. So sinful activities start with wrong association. Of course, they're there due to our previous association, and they can manifest in the present situation. But if it's accidental, as it says here, and Krishna within the heart purifies that devotee, and then he reestablishes him back in his natural position of devotional service, and then he is considered to be righteous again. But still, we don't want to fall down just to have Krishna purify us and get us back up again. That's not the idea. The idea is to stay strong in your devotional service by having right association. And then it's very unlikely you'll commit sinful activities. Okay, so we'll stop there and see if there's any comments or questions. Where's it? Okay, got the gallery here.
Maharaj, for a wonderful class. Thank you so much. Request devotees, if there are any questions, realizations, please go ahead. I request devotees to be on cameras if possible.
Okay. Raj.
Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to yourself, Maharaj. Maharaj, in the purport, when you were reading, there were two statements. I think one of them said, one cannot take to Krishna consciousness without being freed from sinful activity. And another statement said, if one is very serious about Krishna consciousness, he is freed from all sinful activity. Does one who takes, what is one who takes to Krishna consciousness, and what is one who is serious? Are these different things?
No, it's the same. If one is serious, then they will automatically give up sinful activity. You can't be serious unless you give up sinful activity. There's no question of being serious.
Okay. So
Yeah,
it's the same thing, really.
It's actually saying the same thing from two different angles. That's all.
Okay.
And you'll find
Thank
that,
you.
you'll find that in the scriptures a lot. Just to emphasize the point, it's approached in two different ways.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Maharaj. I do have another question, but I'm happy to hold off in case others have questions.
Thank you. And then we'll come back to you soon.
Thank you.
Sridevi,
Krishna.
please go ahead.
Sorry, no problem.
Anyone else had a question? Please go ahead.
Okay, this is Namrata. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to you, Maharaj. Maharaj, I was just contemplating over one statement you said in one of the lectures. Honor and dishonor are all the same. How do we understand this, Maharaj?
Yeah, it's material, that's one. On the material platform, everything is bad. There's nothing good, but we for the sake of variety, we say good and bad. Yeah. Badra Badra Sakala Saman, hey Manda, hey Bala, hey Brahman. Some people say this is good and some people say this is bad. But I say this is all mental speculation. Everything in the material world is bad. That's a statement by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So yeah, we make these dualities from the material perspective, but from the higher perspective, everything is the same because it's all material. Honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress. When you see it from the absolute platform or from the spiritual platform, it's the same because it's material.
So Maharaj, because the material world is illusory, that is why we say, because it is illusion, that is why everything is the same.
Yeah, well, illusory means it's always changing. It exists. It's not that it doesn't exist, but it's constantly changing. So what is bad one time is good another time. What is good one time is bad another time. So things change, and the categories that we put them in also change. There's no constant in the material world. That's why when we make these statements, it becomes an understanding of how material energy works. It has a dual nature, and that dual nature is apparent according to our calculations. So, you know, one person will say, well, the war in Ukraine is bad, and another person will say the war in Ukraine is good. So is it bad or good? No, it's because it's material. You can't put it into any category. But then again, because it's material in relationship to the reality, it's considered to be inauspicious or bad, because it takes us away from Krishna.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you. That clarifies, Maharaj.
Yeah. Yeah, we do that with food too. Some people say, oh, this tastes so good. Another one will say, oh, how can you eat that? It's Is it bad or good? It's all mental speculation.
So for some it may be good, for some it may be bad, for some it may be honor, for some it may be dishonor.
Yeah,
So that is all.
yeah. Therefore, it's all wrong because there's no standard.
Mhm.
And the spiritual life, everything is good because that's the absolute nature of anything spiritual.
Yes.
When Krishna is with the gopis and they're happy, it's good. When Krishna is not with the gopis and they're feeling separation and they're crying, it's also good because it's spiritual.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you. That very much clarifies. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Sridevi Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Vrinda. Please accept my humble obeisances, dear Guru Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to you, Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj, this sentence that you spoke in the class, if one doesn't find any happiness in spiritual activities, then one will again look for it in the three modes of material nature. Is this why people bloop and fall away? Is because they're not really connecting and feeling spiritual happiness?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. That's probably the main reason. Because we are Ananda. By nature, we want happy. Our nature is to be happy.
So that means it's very important for us to feel happy in spiritual activities. And if we are not feeling happy, that's not a good sign. And it could lead us to look for it somewhere else. And then that could be the end of our spiritual life. So how we can get to the platform of, that means one must reach Ruchi, at least have a taste for spiritual activities before one can be free from that danger?
Well, the danger doesn't necessarily mean you come to it. You can also continue on without being happy if you're fixed in the understanding that Krishna consciousness is the platform of ultimate happiness. But that's for people who are more advanced. Devotees who are more advanced can stay fixed even if they're not feeling happy, because they're fixed in the philosophical teachings. Whereas a devotee who is not so advanced will find that if they're not feeling happy over a long period of time. I've seen devotees give up chanting Hare Krishna because they're not getting a taste from chanting. They can't understand why they should continue to chant.
So like Bhakti Vinod Thakur says, if one is not a pure devotee, they need to be happy on several different levels. I forget, socially, intellectually, spiritually, and one more. I don't remember what. I heard that in one lecture, that beginners, we need to have, be happy on several levels so we can progress in our Krishna consciousness. Is that correct? Bhakti Vinod Thakur says that?
Well, whatever he says is obviously correct. I'm not going to say it's.
I mean, my understanding, is that correct? I mean,
well, obviously, happiness is not dependent on these different platforms. Happiness is a feature of the soul. So one is connected with these types of activities, then one will be happy in all of these activities, if they're happy in Krishna consciousness. Happiness has different levels of experience. The lowest form of happiness is peace. If you're feeling peaceful, that's a sign of it. That is also a type of happiness. And if you're a little bit higher than that, it's just normal happiness. Higher than that is joyfulness. Higher than that is ecstasy. Higher than that is ecstatic bliss. And higher than that is spiritual madness.
mm.
So, different levels. So even if you're peaceful, you're somewhat able to stay fixed in Krishna consciousness.
This topic is of concern to me because we don't want people leaving or giving up, and we want to make it as conducive as possible for them to be happy in their services, happy in their activities in Krishna consciousness. So every devotee needs to be nicely matched up according to their natures, according to their inclinations in Krishna consciousness, so that they can feel satisfied that they're doing something nice for Krishna. And, like the PhD being asked to dig holes in the ground, not that there's a mismatch. Would you agree?
Yeah, for the neophyte, yeah.
Okay.
For one more advanced, they're not dependent on happiness. They're fixed at Krishna consciousness. Their happiness is their service, and not how they're feeling or not feeling.
Right. But it takes time to advance to that level, isn't it, Guru Maharaj?
So what's the point of that statement?
The point I'm trying to make is people who join, people who are new, people who are still learning about Krishna consciousness, they should be taken care of nicely.
Yeah, everyone should be taken, not just that.
Right, of course. Right.
Even you.
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
So the idea is to provide. The society should provide for whatever people need, so they can execute their devotional service.
Okay. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah, that's the understanding. The devotee engages in devotional service, and the society provides what they need to engage in devotional service.
Thank you.
Vrindavan Nath Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj, many times I feel that whatever services I'm doing to please Krishna is good in that capacity, but other time also feel that it's nowhere where I need to be. So how to determine what's the capacity, like our capacity, and what's our, like my progress on that?
Both of them are right. Both of those feelings are right. Sometimes when we serve nicely and we're pleasing Krishna, that by pleasing Krishna, there's a sense of satisfaction that comes, a sense of happiness that comes. So that's the experience we have. But at other times we might think, I'm not doing enough. I'm so fallen, I could do much better. That dissatisfaction is actually bhakti. It's actually bhakti because it inspires one to improve. It inspires one to go higher. in the practice of Krishna consciousness. Gopal Kumara, he made it to Vaikuntha, but he was not happy there. He was happy, but he understood it's not the ultimate happiness that is the nature of me. So only when he actually attained Vrindavan was he completely satisfied. So this dissatisfaction is an element of inspiration for increasing the quality of our devotional service.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Guru Maharaj.
Yeah, if you really want more of that, all you have to do is read Shiva Ram Maharaj's latest book called Sankalpa Kaumodi. He talks about that, the dissatisfaction as a principle of making progress in Krishna consciousness.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. That's good to hear.
Yes, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Archana?
Jana Siddhi Mataji. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj, how do I know that my feeling of detachment is not an aversion to doing my prescribed duties? How do I differentiate between them when it comes to certain relationships or certain activities or situations?
In other words, is it a sense of indifference?
Yeah, how do I know? Yes, how do I know that I'm feeling detached, or I am just feeling I don't feel like doing my prescribed duties, and I'm covering it up with that I'm detached.
It could be an element of indifference. That's all. Indifference is kind of an element of attachment, but it's also something that could be material also. When we shouldn't be indifferent to something spiritual, we should be more engaged in that. But that also may be due to the fact that we are more inclined to serve in a different way in certain activities we don't feel inspired for. So we remain a little bit indifferent. And it looks like detachment, but it's more like indifference. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
When we find other activities are more attractive, we don't see that indifference or detachment anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, makes sense.
And that could also come by way of routine. When we do something continuously for a while, we may also become indifferent to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
You look cold.
It is nice today.
Oh, okay.
75 here.
What is it, 75?
Yeah, 75.
That's a miracle.
Yeah, it's nice today, Guru.
Really, that's from March 2nd, 75. Wow.
Yeah, it has been fluctuating from like 50s, 30s to 70s now.
Mhm. That's 75 Fahrenheit for all of you Celsius people out there. Not 75 Celsius. If it was, you wouldn't be alive. Good. I'm happy. I'm going to be experiencing a little bit of what you're experiencing in 2 days. So,
Yeah. Yes, Guru Maharaj. So we will be still having classes, right?
Thursday, tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday, the classes will go on, but it won't be until possibly Sunday where I'll be able to do the next class. So the next 3 days are, well, you'll find that another devotee will give the class. I'm not sure who. Maybe you. We'd like each and every devotee to volunteer to give a class one day. That would be something that once you start giving class, then you start thinking, oh, this is nice.
Manasi Mataji has raised her hand. Mataji, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, thank you, Madhya. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, you mentioned in the beginning that a person should do the devotional service as per their nature. So you were speaking about the ashrams and varna. So our nature comes from the type of varna we have.
Right. It's called Swadharma. Yeah.
Yes. So a lot of times this is mistaken. I mean, being a woman, I have heard some devotees saying that if someone is good in art or if someone is good in dance, they think that to dance or to do art is their swadharma. So they can do service in that area because that's where their swadharma lies. But I always always thought that swadharma means me being in the body of a woman and being in the grahastha ashram. That's my dharma, not that in which skills I'm good at. So I have another question also, but would you kindly clarify this?
Well, the Swadharmas are 4: Brahma, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra. So it's the Varna nature. And the skills, you're right, the skills are not necessarily your Varna. It can manifest from this one particular Swadharma, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. So Brahma, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra, those Swadharmas. But in this age, that it mentions that one has to take education to bring out their actual Varna, because everyone is born in Kali Yuga, more or less in a low position. In other words, one is born as a Sudra, Kalo Sudra Sambhavan, that is Kali Yuga. So training is needed to bring out that Swadharma. So you're right, it's not skills, it's one of these 4 natures: Brahminical nature, Kshatriya nature, and Vaishya nature. And sutras more or less are, the nature of the Sudra is that one has to work under the guise of another. That's a Sudra. Sudras cannot be independent. They don't know how to function independently. Brahmins can be independent. Kshatriyas generally. Vaishyas also can be up to a certain point, but then again, they have to serve in that capacity. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. And then my next question is that you mentioned that if we perform devotional service as per our Swadharma, then we slowly and gradually, the Chaitya Guru purifies us. And then, so does that mean, I think you also mentioned, but I just want to check my understanding, that you were saying that whilst doing that, we are purified to the extent that then we don't identify ourselves with those Swadharma. We go beyond our Swadharma to our Sanatan Dharma, right?
Right. Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah. To go back a little bit, when we don't engage people in Krishna consciousness according to their nature, it takes them, it's harder for them to become Krishna conscious, although they can do it. But when you engage according to your nature, then it becomes more easier and natural. But because it's
Sorry, Maharaj.
Because it's Daivi, because it's spiritual, it is, what's the point I was going to make? Because it's spiritual, it can overshadow our natures. But we find, that's why Prabhupada, 1974, he said, up until 1974, he completely rejected the idea of Varnashram. And in 74, he said, before that, he said, just chant Hare Krishna and engage in devotional service. But then in 1974, Prabhupada said, now we have to establish this devotion, this Varnashram. Why? He said, this Krishna consciousness is not so easy. If it was so easy, why are people leaving? They're chanting Hare Krishna, but they're leaving. But therefore, we need to establish this social system to evaluate, educate, and engage people according to their nature, and then they will be fixed more in the process of chanting and in devotional service. That was Prabhupada's, and then he really pushed Varnashram from 74 on, and he's made many, many lectures right after that. Before, he wasn't so enthusiastic about that, but he called it Daivi Varnashram and not material Varnashram. And in order to do that, you need a Varnashram college or an educational institution where people get trained according to their nature. And that hasn't been done in our society. It's been done in small ways in different places around the world, but not as a feature of Prabhupada's mission, which he really emphasized.
Then Maharaj, when we take Brahman Diksha, then we are in the role of a Brahmana, Daivi Brahmana. But then if being a Grahastha, I'm a Brahmana, which can be the case that a Brahmana can also be a Grahastha.
Right.
But then if I take Brahman initiation, it is also a process. It's not that I am 100% situated as a Brahmana.
Right.
So in that case, then that means that the senior devotees who are trying to engage us, they still has to differentiate that even though one has taken Brahman initiation, but they are still in the developing stage. So they still have to identify the Varna and the Ashram and then accordingly engage, right?
That's true. Yeah. But when one is situated, when one receives Brahminical initiation and is acting according to Brahminical culture, exhibiting the qualities of a Brahmana, exhibiting the activities of a Brahmana, they're considered to be Brahmana. Because these Varnas can change. You know, that's Narada Muni has made that verse. I can't remember the verse. that one, according to one's qualities and activities, one is situated in the particular varna and not by birth or not by ecclesiastical stamping. It has to become by qualities. So yeah, we have brahmanas now in our movement that are not exhibiting brahminical activities or qualities, and we have others who are not even initiated are. So, you know, in order for this to stabilize the social pattern within the society, we give these various initiations. Everything is clear, but we find things are mixed up because of the qualities are not being exhibited, or the activities are not being exhibited. It's like Prabhupada said, you see in India, a man is pulling a rickshaw, but he's got a Brahmin thread on. So what does that mean? He's not a Brahmana, he's a rickshaw driver. He's doing Sudra work.
But then somebody who is doing a Shudra work, Maharaj, even they can have Brahminical qualities, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's janma. I mean, it's qualities and activities, not just qualities.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. But then I'm thinking from this, Maharaj, that it's such a long process because this is a very deep and very subtle process. So depending on from where a Jivatma starts the Krishna consciousness, but to actually reach to a fairly stable position of a Brahmana, and then to take Brahman initiation is so very much important, and not to rush into it, because we are representing Prabhupada and ISKCON, and we can just jeopardize.
Yeah, I agree. There are people who want to get the status of Brahmana, who reasons for service. Well, I'm asked to do Brahminical service. We need Brahminical service. So please give me a second initiation. But not like that. That's. But the thing is, if you take Lord Chaitanya's statement, Gopi Bharata Padakamayor Dasa Dasa, that's the last line of the verse.
Maharaj, can you explain a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to, but there's a lot of background noise.
Is it coming now?
No.
Okay.
So yeah, there is, Lord Chaitanya says, I'm not Brahmana, I'm not Kshatriya, I'm not Vaishya, I'm not Sudra, I'm not Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa. What am I? I'm Gopi Bhatta. In other words, I'm identifying with our Sanatan nature or our spiritual nature. So we have to understand, we do the service of a particular Varna, but we are Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas are above the one ashram system.
Maharaj, coming back to, after hearing your clarification, coming back to the Brahman initiation, somebody who wants to take Brahman initiation, should they be deciding, or should it come from the devotees that, you seem to be qualified and please think about
Yeah, no, it should come, it's coming from the requirements. In order to get Brahminical initiation, one has to be engaged in devotional service for a certain period of time as a minimum requirement. Second, they have to be exhibiting the qualities of a Brahmin. Third, they also have to take Bhakti Shastra and get Bhakti Shastra accreditation. And then the fourth thing is they have to be recommended by another Brahmana in order for them to get approval. So there's a system of evaluation that goes on. That's it.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Oh, Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Is Diptesh still in India?
Yes, Maharaj. He knows.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, Raj, second question.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yes.
One of my stupid questions again. In the purports, Srila Prabhupada was talking about being freed from sinful activity. And I know that when you were speaking, you was referring to if one is practicing or following the four regulative principles, then they will be freed from, they will not be practicing sin or committing sin. So is sinful activity, what is sinful activity then? Is sinful activity breaking the regulative principles?
Well, there's two categories. One is offenses and one is sinful activities.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Breaking the principle, not following the principles, or breaking the principles?
Is there a difference?
Yeah. Breaking them means that you're committing some offense by doing something sinful, and not following means that you're just not engaged. Well, there's vidis, there's nishetas, there's things to do and there's things to avoid. And each category supports the other one. So when it comes to the four sinful activities, we must avoid all sinful activities. And we cannot avoid all sinful activities unless we're engaged in pious activities or devotional activities.
Okay.
Now, Prabhupada said everybody in the material world is sinful because they're not engaged in devotional service. That's a fact. Even those who are pious, they will commit some sinful activities at different times because the material energy is always changing. And then you have the example of King Nirga. He was very pious, but he committed a sinful activity and caused him to take another birth. So that particular pastimes is placed in the Bhagavatam just to teach that unless you're engaged in devotional service, you can't maintain pure piety. It's just not possible.
Okay. So really one has to be engaged in devotional service and following the regulative principles at all times.
That's what it means to be engaged.
Okay. Does it?
Yeah. Don't separate those two. Then you have to be engaged in devotional service means if you're not following the four regulative principles, you're not really engaged in devotional service.
Mm.
You're trying to come to the platform of being engaged in devotion. You're aspiring for that platform, but you haven't reached it yet.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Maharaj.
But that doesn't include accidental fall downs. One, as it says in that verse, Krishna will pick the devotee back up by an accidental. So that means they were engaged in devotional service, and therefore that slip doesn't disqualify them for being engaged, for being considered to be a devotee who was fixed in devotional service. If they get back up again, of course.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hari. Let me see here. Oh, okay, it's 2:30 almost, huh? Or 1:30, 1:25. So let's stop here. I have to, I'm running a little bit tight on daily activities today because tomorrow we're flying to India. So we have to close for today and then continue next 3 days. And Sri Devi says she appreciates Raj's questions, and who else is?
Manasi Mataji.
Manasi, okay.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, we were talking about your wonderful questions. Thank you for your questions. So thank you.
Perfect questions, perfect answers.
Yes. So thank you, Maharaj, for today's wonderful session. Really, I really like the question answer session. And looking forward to your classes again from Sunday. So with your permission, Maharaj, then should we end the call here?
Srimati, do you have a lineup for the next 3 days?
Yes, Guru Maharaj, I was about to tell you. Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Yes, Guru Maharaj, yeah, tomorrow, Thursday, Sri Devi Mataji is giving class. And Friday, Her Grace Radha Vinodini Mataji is giving class. And Saturday, His Grace Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu is giving class.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I request all devotees, as Guru Maharaj said, please come forward and give classes whenever Guru Maharaj is not available to give class. Thank you so much.
That's the reason I give class. So maybe somebody will decide to give class also. We'd like to see everyone give class. The student becomes the teacher, but still remains the student. Okay.
There's nothing so wonderful as having you giving class, Guru Maharaj. This is the perfection of the day, to hear you, to listen to your transcendental voice, to hear the transcendental message of the Lord coming from his pure devotee. As Raj Prabhu said, we are like the prisoners, and the perfect pure devotee is coming to give us transcendental knowledge. So this is the perfection of the day, to have you speaking this beautiful message of Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you.
Well, everything centers around Srila Prabhupada. We are simply trying to repeat something that we heard from Prabhupada, that's all. That's our qualification, just to repeat the truth given by the pure devotee. Okay, thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. Thank you very
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare
Yes.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.